Greetings, I am Tom Earl. On this week's episode, we talk superstition, reflection, and rituals. Check it out. Greetings, I am Tom Earl, and this is my year of grace. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here today sharing your greatest gifts, your time and energy, means the world to me. I hope you know that in this moment, you are valued, you are appreciated, and you are loved just as you are. As you can see, I am alone. It's just you and me today, solo episode style. So whenever we get the chance to do that, I like to start off with some intentional breathing. So wherever you are at, if you could just take a moment to check on your posture, sit up a little straighter if you can. And if you're able to, go through this breathing exercise with me. So here's what we're going to do. In the count of three, we're going to breathe in through our nose. And then we're going to release through our mouth. And as we breathe in through our nose, we are going to stretch, reach, think up, whatever feels good for your body. And as we breathe out, we're going to release any tension, any beliefs that aren't serving us in this moment, any anger, any frustration. We're going to let it go. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. And release. Breathe in. And release. And in this moment of stillness, we're just going to make the intention of being present. Whatever it is that we are meant to experience in this next second, this next moment, is an experience we are grateful for it has arrived as a stepping stone in our own evolution of who we are and of that continual journey of evolution into realizing our full potential. And I say realizing because there is a stream within you that is connected to infinity. There is within you a division of infinity, and you know that how many times if you take a little bit out of infinity, what do you hold in your hand? You hold infinity. And so it's not that you need to become better or that you need to evolve into something different or shed your skin and become something new. Rather, you just need to return to your essence. You need to return to who you already are. And it's rather all these layers of doubts, of thoughts that were put in our heads since we were young, that builds up a barrier to our true self. And so that's all we're doing. We're just coming back home. With that intention, we're going to breathe in one more time. 3, 2, 1. Breathe in. And release. On this week's episode, we are going to talk about ownership. We are going to talk about superstition. And we are going to talk about the power of belief. At least that's what I think we're going to do. We're going to take this one as a fun journey. Like all of my episodes, like all of my interviews, we're going to allow what's meant to arrive. I want to start with this. What is the opposite of taking personal responsibility, of taking personal ownership? What is the opposite? Tell me. I can hear you. Yell. I bet if you yell it as loud as you absolutely can, wherever I am in this moment, I will hear it. What is your answer? There's lots of answers. There's no right or wrong answer. So when I'm going to give my answer now, if it's not what you said, I don't want you to think, damn it, Tom, you tricked me. For me, the opposite of ownership, the opposite of personal responsibility is blame. What is blame? One of the best definitions I've heard from the legendary Brené Brown is really just trying to transfer uncomfortable feelings. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing her definition. But it's when you have this discomfort, and discomfort can be anger, it can be frustration, it can be a feeling of shame, and we try to get rid of it by putting it onto somebody else through the word we use of blame. You can never be in control. You can never be taking responsibility. And you can never move forward constructively when you're in a place of blame. It is a place of disempowerment. And it is a place that we put ourselves there thinking that it will be a way we'll empower ourselves. It's very closely linked to forgiveness, if you think of it. When we don't forgive somebody, we don't forgive them because we think that withholding of our forgiveness will somehow cause that person harm. Because if we are hurt, we want them to be hurt right along with us. A great example, somebody cuts you off, or traffic is such a good learning experience. Somebody cuts you off and it annoys us, it angers us. And so we want to therefore have them feel the same level of hurt, of anger, of discomfort that we are feeling. And so we want to instigate some sort of action that causes the reaction in them of anger. Now, sometimes what happens is somebody cuts you off, and a half hour later, they're gone. They have taken a different turn, and you are still mad. Whether we realize it or not, we're still mad. We're holding on to that initial reaction, that initial trigger that was caused by that person cutting us off. And we hold on to it because we have this belief that we don't even realize that we have, which is, if I hold on to this anger, it'll also somehow cause that person to suffer. Now, when we start to talk about neuroscience or different research, they say that in terms of our bodies having a reaction, or our mind having a reaction to a stimulus, to a trigger, to an event, to something that causes pain, there's one, the initial trigger, the initial instigation that can cause physical pain. Let's say you stub your toe. So you stub your toe, the first trigger, the first reaction is the actual physical pain of your toe. The second one occurs in the mind. It's where we then get upset and we want to say, oh my gosh, well, how could somebody leave this laying on the ground? Or how could I be so stupid? And it's that pain we cause ourselves through our mind. What's interesting is that second one, the one that is caused by our mind, can happen without the first trigger being there. So let's say you're about to give a presentation to somebody, or you're about to have a conflict mediation conversation, and we are anticipating, this is now we're jumping to step 2, we're anticipating pain that would result in physical pain or emotional pain. And we're thinking of it in the future without even having to experience that first level of pain where it's physical. We can cause ourselves pain with our mind. Now, oftentimes, from my conversations with people, from my research, all these things, basically to say, what I have found to be one of the biggest triggers of this second kind of pain, this mental pain that we can cause ourselves, revolves around control. That when we feel out of control, when we feel there's a lack of control, that is oftentimes one of the moments or situations or circumstances that has us causing pain from our thoughts that we feel in our body in the form of stress, anxiety, stomach aches, all these kind of things. That could look like something we care deeply about. And somebody comes in and they want to edit it and they want to add their thoughts, and we're like, oh, stay away, this is my baby, this is what I'm doing. Or when we get really busy, there's a whole bunch of things going on, and the mounting to-do list starts to make us feel more and more and more out of control. So for me, what I have found to be one of the biggest antidotes to the stress caused from feeling like we're not in control is to take personal responsibility, is to take ownership in every situation that you can. Somebody cuts you off in the car. Tom, how am I supposed to take ownership of that? They cut me off. I was driving good. I've never driven crazy in my entire life. ownership am I supposed to take of that time? So for me in those situations, I feel out of control because it's somebody way out here I can't do anything about. They just came in and they cut me off. So what then I try to take control of is I can control how I react. And that oftentimes is where our power lies, is knowing that I get to decide the long-term emotional reaction I'm going to have. Now, that trigger reaction, that's not something I can as much control. Maybe over time, but that initial stimulus is kind of ingrained in that animal part of our brain that's evolved over hundreds of years, where something comes in, I'm going to have that fight or flight. But what I get to decide is how I'm going to walk back down that ladder of intensity that I've just walking up. And so when we start to create that muscle memory of something happens where somebody says something or a circumstance happens and I shift into the blame, I start to tell myself, first of all, I name it, that I am blaming, okay? And it might feel good in this moment to blame, but I'm now in a place of disempowerment. There's no way blaming is going to eventually lead long-term to what I seek, which is happiness, resolution, a feeling of control, a feeling of empowerment. So I name that. And if I decide, no, I think I like the feeling of revenge a little bit right now. All right, let's sit in it, knowing it's not going to lead to anything long-term good here, Tom, but let's sit in it. I'm going to take ownership that this is where I am. So I sit there, but eventually I recognize and I say, okay, let me try to move past blame. What about this could I have been involved with? Sometimes, for example, when it's something that we're on a creative project, this happens a lot when you're collaborating with people. We feel this ownership over our part of the project. And if somebody jumps in and does some crazy things, or they miss a meeting, or they miss their part of the project deadline, I start to ask myself, what could I have done different? Did I communicate everything that was needed? Is there some things that I don't know? Maybe this person was super busy and I could have checked in with them to begin with. All these kind of things start to take me back into that place of empowerment. Now, I want to share with you a story that happened to me in June. So leading up to June, I would say probably from January until June, progressively, I was getting more and more anxious and stressed. There was times where I would just get up and I would just have to go for a walk and feel like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? I was feeling like things were just spiraling out of control. This word keeps coming back, control. Trying to paint a picture without going into too much specific details so I can protect the integrity of the people I was working with or the projects I was on, so it doesn't seem like I'm pointing the finger at any one thing. So accumulation of many different things. I was feeling very overwhelmed and I wasn't feeling heard. And so it was just building up and building up and building up. So at the end of June, I went back home to Wisconsin, a complete change of scenery, to be with my sister in her final weeks of her pregnancy. So I was out there. Wisconsin's so much more laid back than Los Angeles. And my schedule was very much chill. I'd get up, do a little bit of work, help out around the house, go for walks, very, very chill. And I noticed that for the first day, that the stress was gone. And that's usually because travel requires a lot of your attention. It's new, a lot of different stimulation. But once that first day went by, as time went on, I was getting more and more and more worked up and stressed again. And I really paused and realized, what is the constant? I'm no longer involved in the same projects. I'm no longer working with the same people, not working in the same environment, not even living in the same place. Nothing is the same this week that has been going on for the past couple months. Nothing is the same. Oh, except one thing was the same. What was that one thing? Me. I was the one constant throughout it all. And so what did that say? I realized in that moment that I was the cause of my own stress. That yes, there were some things that were going on that were clearly messed up, that needed to be different. And yet, the stress that I felt was not because of those things. Those things exacerbated it. Those things gave me the excuse I was looking for to cause the anxiety within me. So I realized I need to do something different. And so I went back to basics. Basics are stillness, getting still and listening to what comes up. So I started meditating right then and there every single morning. I meditated for 15 minutes every morning, every single day I was out there. And I just found this calmness that once I had that calmness, once I had that reassurance, once I had that stillness, then I would go into the heart, the eye of the hurricane, if you will, the heart of the lion's den. In those really stressful moments that a week before would cause me all kinds of knots in my stomach and would cause me to curse people out, not to their face, like when I'm going for my walk, like, oh, this person's crazy. I would go into there and I just still feel this calmness. Like, okay, this is the difference between blame and ownership. And so for me, that has been one of the solutions, is I can really find that personal responsibility, that releasing blame, I have to go into a place of stillness. And so one of the ways I do that is through meditation, is through going for walks. And so that's why the second thing I want to talk about today is, what are your rituals and what are your practices for reconnecting with yourself, for finding that stillness? Because often when we're going through the busyness, when we're going through everything, our minds can start to gain momentum. They can start to become a runaway train. And when they do that, we start to make the mistake that thinking, thoughty thingy in our brain is who we are. That when my left hand or my right hand starts doing things, I don't think I am my hands. When my legs are running real fast because I'm going for a run or I'm working out, I don't think I am my legs. And yet when my mind starts going off on its own, I do think I am my mind. I am these thoughts. These thoughts are true. Everything I'm thinking right now is actually reality. Rather, the thinking thought part of ourselves is just another tool, just like any other part of our body. But that's not exactly where we exist. And so all of this, even to me, as I listen to book after book and tape after tape and lecture after lecture, actually, I don't listen to a single tape. I don't know where I'd listen to a tape. But you know what I'm saying? That when I hear people say these kind of things, it's very esoteric to me. It's very like, oh yeah, I get it. It's live in the power of the now, be the observer. Okay, yeah, like heard this before. But really when I start to put it into practice is when I find stillness. And so what are your rituals where you're finding that stillness? And I'm defining stillness not as you actually become still. I'm finding stillness where you realize that you're not just your thoughts. And the way that I feel that I'm not just my thoughts is I feel this presence in the moment. I feel this calmness. I feel this anxiety it starts to dissipate. I'm trying to describe an esoteric thing, but I bet you've had a moment somehow in your life, sometime ever, where time went by and you didn't even realize it. Where even if it was for 20 minutes, those 20 minutes went by and you weren't caught up in that constant chatter within your mind. Maybe it was a good movie you were watching. Maybe it was you were working on a task and you were very focused. Maybe it was a great conversation you were having with somebody. Maybe it was a delicious meal. Maybe it was when you were going skydiving. Any of these things could have been where you were so focused on the task at hand that mental chatter was tuned down. And really, the mental chatter didn't tune down. We just stepped out of that stream. And so, what are the things in your life that allow you to step into that space? For me, one is spin class. You've heard me talk about this a million times. And this is what I mean, where it doesn't have to be something where you're actually standing still, because spin class is very active for me. So for me, why I like it is there's really good music. It's physically challenging, so I have to be present. And it's something I can do where I can be very excited. And at the same time, there's moments where I'll start to feel very exhausted. And my mind will kick in that'll tell me, you should give up, you should stop, you should go a little bit easier, you should go a little bit lighter. And in those moments, I can practice what I focus on. And so what I tell myself is, there is a part of you where the tank is empty. That is the part that you're predominantly listening to based upon habit. There is a part of you where the tank is full, where there is energy left to be had. If there wasn't, you wouldn't be able to blink. You wouldn't be able to keep moving your legs. So instead, I am going to intentionally focus on the part of my body, on the part of me where the tank is full. And I just lock it in and I go, 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 go. And it practices me, and I practice having the focus of something that is empowering rather than focusing on the lack or the something that's not there. Another one is every night before I go to bed, I meditate for at least 7 minutes. And usually what I do is I listen to something like a nice lecture, usually something that people wouldn't consider to be meditative, but it's something that allows me to concentrate on it as I'm breathing in and out, and it practices that focus. The other one is going for a walk every single morning. So for you, what is going to be your ritual, your practice that allows you to find that stillness? And I want to encourage you that once you find it, that you stick to it. And that if you find yourself feeling that stress, if you find yourself blaming others or blaming yourself or blaming anybody or anything, I want you to double down on those rituals and see the way it impacts your life. And here's the thing that it'll uncover for us. It'll help you uncover not only ways you're blaming and all these kind of things we've already been talking about, it'll help you uncover superstitions you still believe in. And I don't want to just put this on you. Superstitious thoughts we, all of us still believe in. You know the song by Stevie Wonder. But if you really listen to the lyrics, right? When you believe in things that you don't understand, then you suffer. Superstition ain't the way. Let's run it back one more time and hear the horn sections, When you believe in things that you don't understand, then you suffer. Superstition ain't the way. Okay, I went there. But when you think about that, when we believe in things that we don't understand, then we suffer. One of the ones I want to talk about the most that's a superstitious thought is around the subject of overwhelm. Oftentimes, we can find ourselves in the habit of feeling the need to say yes to everything, especially when we're trying to advance our careers or we're trying to meet somebody new or we're doing something that we feel is left up to chance. So let's say you have this business and your business is based upon meeting different clients or going to networking events or hitting the stage or going to an audition. And so you realize, I am so exhausted that I feel like I'm going to pass out. I'm sick. I'm burnt out. I'm really not feeling passionate about this. I've totally lost focus of what it is that I'm even trying to go after. But an invitation for a meeting comes in. Now, in this moment, I would suggest you say no. If you don't have a criteria for what to say yes and no to, you're feeling burnt out, you feel like you're going to pass out, all these kind of things, this is a really good example of a time you should say no. But this is where superstitious thoughts start to creep up. We think this could be the one. This could be that one meeting, that one opportunity that I've been waiting for, that'll make the difference, will push me through. And if I don't go to this meeting, if I don't say yes to this thing, I might be missing that opportunity of a lifetime. Now, this to me is a superstitious thought. It is something that is this philosophy. It is a belief that there's really no proven fact to. We've never taken a data set and said, now this is the time I said no, and this is the time I said yes. And when I said no, this is how many opportunities were lost. And then yes, this is how many opportunities never came to fruition, even though I went. But when I compare X, Y, so yes, there's the data thing. But the reason it's superstitious is because it seems like it's this big, this existential thing, this kind of a thing that's outside of ourselves where we have no control over. So we just got to do these random rituals and throw salt over our shoulder. Because if you don't, you never know what's going to happen. It's superstitious, okay? Saying no to meetings, saying no to things is probably one of the most empowering things you can do in your life. Because to succeed, you need not only focus, but you need focus within on your worthiness. One of the biggest ahas that I have had in the past 2 years, for me, past 3 years, let's say, but really the past 2 years, and especially in my year of grace, is that it's an ounce of inspired action. Okay, I don't know what's bigger than an ounce or a pound, so I'm going to skip the analogy here, folks. Inspired action is always more valuable than burnt out, forced, pushing yourself in an unhealthy way action. Here's the times that I realize that I'm doing this, where I'll be laying down and I'll be like, okay, I need to rest, Tom, I need to rest. And then the superstitious part of my mind says, yeah, but like, you got a timeline here. And if you don't do this today, you not doing it today could be that one decision you make where this could have been your opportunity. I've already outlined this thing. So you think that. So then I get up. I'm like, okay, you're right. I better do something. Yeah, let's do it. So I get up. I sit down to work. Here's what happens. I sat down to work, and for the past 30 minutes, I'll catch myself that I was on Tumblr and I was on No, usually I was just on Tumblr. But I was doing this and I was clicking on that. And I was really, in that whole half hour, I maybe did something for 5 minutes that was actually productive. The reason being because I was completely exhausted. I was completely burnt out. What I needed to do was to rest. But instead, I started to do this pseudo thing where I'm going through the motions of working, but I'm really too tired to actually do them with any like serious concentration or grit. So I'm just wandering, and there's so many things out there to take your attention if you're willing to give it, and so I let them. So what I've been doing for myself recently is catching myself in those moments and saying, am I going to rest, or do I have the energy, and am I going to work? Because I'm no longer going to do this pseudo rest work thing where I pretend I'm working, but really subconsciously I'm trying to rest. So I stop and I go lay down for however long I need to. And then when I do come back, I'm coming back more focused and more stronger than if I had just sat there and tried to work all the way through it. When we start to look at that net, same amount of work is getting done, if not more focused, better work is getting done than when I went out and rested. Now, for you, if this is really difficult, it's like, Tom, I hear you, but still, how do I know when to say yes or when to say no? Then what I want you to do is to get criteria written down. And the way you get criteria written down is to start to figure out what is the one thing that is the most important thing that I am focusing on right now. And you can have one for each area of your life. In my relationships, in my health and fitness, in my work. And I want you to get very focused and clear on what that thing is. And when opportunities start to come up and you start to see that they're further and further outside of that focus, outside of that scope, that you say no. Now, if you're on the podcast, you're not seeing all these really cool hand motions I'm making, but you say no. And when you start to find yourself thinking, oh my God, but I know I should say no. Every part of my body is saying no, but this could be the opportunity that I've been waiting for. And if I say no, I could blow it. Superstition. That's a superstitious thought. I hear so many people say it. It's not going to happen like that. It's just not. It's not. It's not going to be the one opportunity that you miss and that you blow. And this is what I have to say. If whatever you're striving towards, if because you didn't go to one meeting, the whole house of cards crumbles, if you never get to become that thing you've always wanted to be, if that one meeting was the thing that did it, it wasn't meant for you. There is no way that in any of the goals that I have, the really passionate goals, that making or missing one meeting will make or break my career. It just won't. I'm positive. Because I'm in this for life. I am in this for life. And so I want to go at it like somebody who wants to play it for life. Because the athletes are the people who run up and abuse their bodies, whether it's with, whatever ways people abuse their bodies that go too far, that you don't invest in recovery, that you're not, taking it at a pace, that you're trying to cheat, you're trying to jump the system with steroids or something like that, that you got like a five-year window span. And then when you get older, you got nothing. You're done. You relive your glory years over and over again. So if you're in this game for life, then just know, play it like somebody who's in it for life. I was going to the movies with Adora just the other day. And I was talking about, I used to when Adora and I first met. I was very steeped in that you had to hustle, that you had to work. It'd work. I wasn't getting any sleep. I was getting maybe 5 to 6 hours of sleep. That anything outside of work, I saw as a distraction. I would get frustrated. And so I said to her, like, it's crazy that I thought, this was back in 2015. It's crazy that I thought that by skipping a couple hours of sleep each night, that I thought sitting down to watch a movie and spend quality time with you, that I thought let's have us go for a walk, or let's have a dinner with friends, that I thought that by doing that, by skipping those things, that I would immediately find that success that I've always dreamed of. Where I know now that I'm, 2015, 2019, 4 years later, I was literally just laughing. Like, I had no idea back then that there was so much more to go. There was so much more to go. And I'm in such a good place now, but the reason I'm in such a good place now is not because I skipped hours and hours of sleep, or because I never ever hung out with family, or because I never watched a movie or never relaxed. That is not the reason for the success I have. And I was just laughing at myself thinking, I really believed that success would come through kind of that self-punishment, that I will suffer now so I'm happy then. It doesn't work like that. That is a superstitious thought. So I feel like I've driven this one home well enough for you. And so really a lot of these ahas, or these beliefs, or these things I've become passionate about that I'm sharing with you now and going off on my friendly rants, is because we oftentimes believe things that we haven't investigated. They could be limiting beliefs. They could be superstitious beliefs. They could be bigoted beliefs. They could be beliefs that hurt us constantly. But because we've believed them so long, because we've never questioned them, they have now become habitual thoughts. They've now become habits, which means that they are instant reactions, and they go unchecked, and they become not only our reactions, but our actions and our behaviors. Reminds me of a story. You've probably heard this story before. In fact, it was my stepmom, Julie, who told me this story. So it goes like this. So someone's in the kitchen. This is the way my stepmom told me. I'm going to tell you exactly the way she told me. So mother was in the kitchen teaching her daughter how to cook the Thanksgiving ham. Haram, someone said in the background. Why are you cooking ham? No, that's not how she told the story. This is how she told the story. So a mom was teaching her daughter how to cook the Thanksgiving ham. So they're getting ready to put it in the pan. And so she says, so what you got to do first is you got to cut off the one side of the pan on the one side of the ham on the right. This is the knife noise. You got to cut off one side of the ham on the right, and you got to cut off 1 inch of the ham on the left. So in the end, you've cut off 2 inches of the ham. Now it's perfect. You put it in the pan. You put all the seasonings. You put it in. So the daughter was sitting there thinking, Mom, I'm down, but it seems like we're kind of wasting 2 inches of really good ham. 1 inch on the right, 1 inch on the left. Why do we do that? She's like, you know what? I've never thought about why we do that. All I know is that's how my mom taught me. She's like, well, let's ask Grandma. So Grandma, they call her up in the other room because it's Thanksgiving. They're all together. They say, Grandma, how come we always cut off 2 inches of ham? She's like, well, I don't know. I've been doing it for years and years and years. I don't know. And they're like, well, okay. So then, they're having, the ham gets cooked. Everybody's having their good Thanksgiving meal off in the corner. Tom's eating his vegan food. And, it's a good time. And the grandma says, I remembered. Everybody's like, what? What did you remember? She says, I remembered why I cut off 2 inches of the ham. Why I cut off the inch on the left, inch on the right. I remembered. They're like, why? They're ready for this really profound reason. She's like, because when I first started making it, that was the size of the pan I had. And the ham wouldn't fit in the pan unless I cut off 1 inch and 2 inches. And I learned how to make it in that, and I've been doing it ever since. And I taught you, and that's the whole reason. Where it's like, well, that is no longer a good enough reason to cut off the ham. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that ham story. I said ham more times today than I've ever said this entire year. What's the point of this story? There are so many things that we do just because they have always been done this way. I have found that people will fight the hardest to maintain things that have always been done the way they have been done. We in our own lives have things where, like, yeah, let's change this. Like, I'm all about radical change. But then you find that one thing that's always been done the way it's been done, and it'll bring something up within us. For me, I can tell you, once I get comfortable living in a house, I don't want to move. I'm good. Why we gotta move? Why we gotta move? Adora's down with moving all the time. She's like, hey, we need to find a better place. I got this vision. Let's see it through. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. After finally seeing every single time she suggested this, that life gets better, I thought, why do I get so resistant around moving? It's like, oh, I bet it goes back to that I was in a happy home and then my family got divorced in around 13. Every year and a half since I was 13 till now, I've had to move. I've never lived anywhere longer in one building, in one room, in one place, longer than 2 years. So you think, 13, what am I now, 32? So for almost the past, whatever, how many years it is, 20 years, I've moved all the time. And so can feel like this disempowering thing, oh, I have to move. So I realized that is a belief that I formed subconsciously when I was young. And it's carried all the way through now into my adulthood. And it's preventing me from experiencing new and exciting things with somebody I care about. Do I still want to continue believing this thing that I've always believed because I've always believed it? And when I went into that self-reflection, it allowed me to make that decision from a place of empowerment. And so I bet there's things within your life, within your company, within your culture, within your family, whatever way you want to look at it, where you're doing it because it's the way things have always been done. And I got to say, it's never a good reason. And so when you start to reflect upon things, you start to see dysfunction in operations, dysfunction in the way things are managed, dysfunction in relationships, all these kind of things, you start to dig down, you start to get into it and figure out, why are we doing this? If you hit the wall of, I don't know, because we always have, that is the place you should start to dig down and double down. And how do you do that? Well, start this episode over. First, by taking ownership and personal responsibility in the areas that you can. That is your way of taking control. And then go through that process of self-reflection. And self-reflection is unlocked through powerful questions. Those can be powerful questions that come up without ever being voiced in the stillness of meditation, in the stillness of spin class, in the stillness of going for a walk. It can be questions that are brought up while listening to podcasts like this one, listening to audiobooks, reading books, going to lectures, going to therapy. These kind of questions really allow us to walk through that self-reflection. Good way to get the voice out and to channel and to be able to visually see our answers to these reflections is by journaling. You can journal in an abstract way by doing some collage art, or by every day or once a week or once a month, writing down your answers to prompts. And when we start to do that, we get to define for ourselves what is the things that we actually want to believe? What are the paths we actually want to walk down? What are the superstitious thoughts and disempowering habits that we are carrying that we are ready to bless and release? The reason I'm going through this whole process with you is I want this last month of this year to be this ramp that you're driving up right now, or you're running up, or you're riding up. I don't know other ways you can go up a ramp, but you're going up that ramp. So when you hit January 1, you can just skyrocket into 2020, that we can close this. This is crazy. We can close this decade. Did you think about that? I didn't think about that until the other week. We are ending a decade. We're going into a new decade. And so rather than waking up in 2020 and being like, oh my God, I better do something, I want you to right now lay the foundation to get into 2020 by closing this year strong through that self-reflection and by starting to practice the habits now. If you remember, if you haven't listened to it yet, listen to the logistics and the time management episode I did a couple episodes ago, tomerl.com/ML. I think that's what it is. Anyways, go back a couple episodes and we talk about how life is really a series of those micro wins or those micro moments where we lower our standards. So go through and listen to that, because as we end this past year, we want to start to create those micro habits, those micro wins that allow us to go into this next decade strong, centered, and with passion. My friends, this has been an absolute pleasure to spend this time with you here today. If anything you heard today meant something to you, I would love to continue the conversation. Hit me up on any social media at Tom Earl Artist. You can send me an email, tom@tomearl.com. We're going to have a couple more sessions like this month, and so I look forward to you joining me again and going through this process of making sure we're ending this year intentionally. Any questions, any love you want to share would mean the world to me to hear from you. And so, my friends, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for stopping by and listening today. And as always, I'm wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.